All right, so we're going to pick up where we left off with the religion movements with the Second Great Awakening, and we're going to move into the abolitionist movement. One thing I do want to point out is that they are kind of together. Right? So the Second Great Awakening is actually going to influence the abolitionist movement. This idea that everybody has a divine spark. Everybody has some bit of religiosity in them, if that's a word, that can get them to heaven, which is a big concept, because to have slaves, you have to defend that by saying that they are not people. Here, that's breaking that. So we're starting to get a growing abolitionist movement. Before we get into this, one thing I want to make perfectly clear is that this is an abolitionist movement. This does not reflect the majority of people in America or the majority of the people in the North. In America during this time period, it's a sad fact that most white people were white supremacists, believing that the white race was supposed to rule the others. It's not something that they were apologetic about either. They were quite open with this. So when we see this abolitionist movement, it's not the same thing as equal rights for African Americans. Okay, they're kind of separate. Just because you're giving somebody their freedom doesn't elevate them to being on the same level as you. So that's one thing I wanted to keep in mind, because in their ideas for doing these things, we kind of lump them in together as being the same, getting rid of slavery and the extension of civil rights. While they're impacted, it's not exactly one and the other. They aren't technically together. Okay. So we're starting to see that slavery is a sin, right, at least in the North. And in the South, we're talking about that necessary evil concept, that it was necessary for the economy to go, even though that they knew it was a mortal sin. Here, we're talking, these abolitionists are saying that slavery is not only bad for the slave, right? We got that. But it's also bad for the slave owner's soul, because it is going to lead to them spending eternity in hell. So they're going to try to leverage that to convince people to give up slavery. All right. So this is a tree, and it's basically this is a political cartoon talking about the tree of slavery. It's causing all of these other things: treachery, lust, brutality, robbery, knavery, oppression, villainy, murder, suicide, death. That the root of all evil is slavery, avarice, or greed, and injustice. And that you have to chop slavery down to get rid of all these bitter fruits. One of the first groups of people pushing for abolition is the Quakers. Right? The Quakers have always had this idea of an inner light of the soul, that anybody can go to heaven, and also that anybody can be their own preacher. They don't have standard preachers within the Quaker religion. Right? The Grimke sisters, they're going to be a little different. And forgive me for that right now. But they're a little different because they're going to be Southern abolitionists. These ladies were born in the South to a wealthy slave owner. However, they're going to refute everything. They're going to go against what their society tells them, and they're going to become Quakers. And as Quakers, they're going to talk about pacifism and abolition. Completely different than before. They have a different perspective on this whole abolition idea than anybody before. Plus, they're going to be women's rights leaders as well. The Southern Baptist Convention. Now, the way the Southern Baptist Church was formed is that there was actually the Baptist Church at one time. However, in 1845, there was discussion in the Baptist Church about saying that slavery is a mortal sin, right, and that it should be stopped. Well, you can guess that this is going to upset a lot of slave owners in the South and a lot of white people in the South. So the Southern Baptist Convention was started as a way to break away from the Northern Baptists who were embracing abolition. All right? So just wanted to point that out, that this abolition issue is going to cause some churches to split up. This idea of abolition is going to get out there, and it's going to inspire some events. One of the first ones is David Walker. He was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, He was a slave. Right? He's going to settle in Boston. He's going to escape. He's going to go to Boston. While there, he's going to learn to write. And then he writes David Walker's Appeal in 1829. And a part of this appeal is it essentially tells, this is David Walker writing, and he says that slaves have a moral obligation, right? Not just the option, but they are obligated to rise up and kill their masters. And you can imagine this doesn't go over so well for the Southerners. So if this book made its way into a Southern city, it was automatically burned. It was big problems if you had this book on you. We're going to talk some similar to that when we get to the 1950s and 60s in Germany, with Mein Kampf, which was Hitler's book, is going to be like burned if it ever got caught in Germany. Same thing's going on here in the South because of David Walker's Appeal, because it is essentially saying that there should be a race war. And the problem for the South is that this is only the tip of the iceberg. David Walker is not alone. He's not the only former slave that's upset about this. Nat Turner's a slave in Southampton County, Virginia, and he's seen in this dual light. There's a lot of people who want to embrace what Nat Turner did, and then there's others who label him a terrorist. Sometimes it's one and the other, both. He's kind of got a dual personality to him. But Nat Turner, 1831, there is a revival of sorts going on in southern Virginia. So the slaveholders are all going to go to that revival. Or a lot of them are. So in 1831, Nat Turner gets together with a group of slaves, and they march out, and they do exactly what David Walker had told them to, and they start killing all the white people they can find. 50 plus whites are going to die in this Nat Turner's rebellion, including women and children. Women and children were slaughtered very, very badly during this encounter. So Turner, though, he is going to be caught. Right, this is a picture of a painting of what people thought it looked like when he was planning this. But he's going to be caught. He's going to be hung, and actually he's going to be hung and his skin removed as kind of just one more stick it to him, basically to intimidate others from trying to do the same thing ever again. Right? That would probably deter me. Other people, William Lloyd Garrison is probably one of the biggest abolitionists during the time period. He has a newspaper. I'm trying to remember if it's the North Star or... But it's one of the largest anti-slavery newspapers in the North. Boston's going to become a big hub for the abolitionist movement. He is actually going to be one of the founders of the American Anti-Slavery Society. We'll talk about that in a minute. He's in favor of burning the U.S. Constitution because he sees that as a document of supporting slavery. And there we talked about the Three-Fifths Compromise basically supports slavery in his idea. And he opposed the return of fugitive slaves. So as slaves got to Boston, he opposed people trying to return them to their slave owners. Garrison's the Liberator, Frederick Douglass's is the North Star, says, "I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." Like we said, abolitionists during this time period are a minority, but they're going to be a vocal minority. Right. The American Anti-Slavery Society, one of the organizations that William Lloyd Garrison is going to promote. They're for the abolition of slaves. Now, they don't believe that white people and black people can live in harmony together. So their idea was to colonize West Africa. Basically to send African Americans back, well, they had never lived there, but back to Africa. So they get a piece of land in what is today Liberia. James Monroe was one of the biggest promoters of it. That's why their capital today is named Monrovia. And you can see the similarities to the American flag. These are going to be founded now, not an entire nation of Liberia, but a good portion at this time, people moving to Africa from America escaping slavery, or just escaping racism. Frederick Douglass, probably one of the biggest abolitionists. He's a former slave. He's going to have his own newspaper, the North Star. He writes the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, is basically an autobiography. During the Civil War, he's going to help recruit black regiments to the Union Army. Now, he's also going to write another kind of a speech, which we will take a look at in class, called "What is the Meaning of 4th of July to the Negro?" I think that's the name of it, but it's the same gist. And we'll take a look at that, and how it's a scathing indictment of the United States. The Underground Railroad, probably the more famous parts of this abolitionist movement, is a secret society, a secret system of getting slaves to escape and make their way to the north by way of the Mississippi River, or by here. Some actually take a water route. There's going to be a guy named Henry Fox Brown who basically packs himself up in a box and basically attaches postage to it, and he's going to go, I think, from Virginia up here into Philadelphia and escape slavery in a box. Henry Fox Brown. But code words along the Underground Railroad to keep it secret so nobody knows about it. The most famous conductor on this is going to be Harriet Tubman. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about her is that she did carry a pistol with her on these, and it wasn't to protect themselves from slave owners. It was to basically keep everybody in line, because if one person got scared, left, and went back to a slave owner, the entire system could fall apart. So once you were in, you didn't leave unless you were caught. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the Big Dipper to the North Star. If you're headed north, you're going to get to freedom eventually. Also follow Old Man River. Sojourner Truth, she's going to be an escaped slave. She's also going to be a feminist as well, pushing for women's suffrage. Right, so we're going to stop this one here too, because we've kind of covered the abolitionist movement, and it's kind of distinct from the women's rights movement and the asylum reform education of the Utopian Communities. We'll try to finish that up in a second. Thank you. I'll see you in a minute.